All right, in this video, we are going to talk about the mean and standard deviation of a binomial random variable. So, a binomial random variable is a discrete random variable. And in one of the previous sections, we learned how to calculate the mean and standard deviation of a random variable, right? A discrete random variable, rather. And so we can do the same thing for a binomial random variable and calculate its mean and standard deviation. So instead of back in the previous section when we calculated those things, what we did was we had a probability distribution for the random variable, and we calculated that out right with those formulas. So here, right, one of the nice things about these sort of generalized classes of random variables is that um, you can get easy expressions for, or maybe not so easy, but expressions for the mean and the standard deviation without having to go through and calculate those using the formulas that we did previously. Okay, so here are the formulas. This is the formula for the mean. Okay, so the mean is n times p. Remember, n is the number of trials, and p is the probability of success. So the mean would be n times p. And then sigma, the standard deviation, right, is the square root of n times p times 1 minus p. Okay, so these formulas make it pretty easy to calculate the mean and standard deviation. But remember, they only apply to binomial random variables. For any other type of random variable, you have to use the, if you don't have formulas. So in our class, any other type of random variable, if it's not binomial, then you'll have to use the way that we talked about in section 5.2. Okay, so just as a quick example, let's say we had 10 trials, right? And the probability of a success is 0.6, let's say. All right, so what that would mean is that n, right, the number of trials would be 10, and p, the probability of success, would be 0.6. Right, so the mean would be n times p, so 10 times 0.6. And so that comes out to be 6 when you multiply that out. And then the standard deviation is going to be the square root of n times p. So n is 10, p is 0.6, and 1 minus p. Well, that's underneath the square root. So we would just calculate that out. All right, 10 times 0.6 is 6. And then 1 minus 0.6 is 0.4. Multiply those together, we get 2.4. And we get the square root of 2.4, and so square root of 2.4. All right, and that comes out to be 1.55 to 2 decimal places. Okay. All right, and so you can see that is pretty straightforward. Instead of calculating it the long way like we did in 5.2 for a binomial random variable, if they ask you to calculate the mean and the standard deviation, which they will, then you would use these two formulas. Okay, and that is it for this one.